A cohort study, also known as a prospective study, is a design in which study subjects are disease-free at enrollment and chosen based on exposure status. Exposed and unexposed groups are followed for the same amount of time to determine who develops the disease or outcome of interest. This design meets the need to confirm a causal association between exposure and outcome, since the exposure is established first and the potential effect is captured prospectively. The temporal association is actually witnessed during the course of the study. You can think of this like a motion picture study. This design follows groups of individuals free from disease through a period of time in motion picture fashion to determine whether the disease develops. Here is a diagram of a cohort study. At present time, exposed and unexposed are recruited to be in the study. Then they are followed prospectively to see if they develop the outcome or disease of interest. The exposed and unexposed groups are then compared to determine the association with the outcome. Data from cohort studies are used to calculate the risk or rate of the health characteristic or disease. These are compared between unexposed and exposed groups to generate measures of association known as risk or rate ratios. Finally, cohort studies are used to measure the proportion of the outcome that is attributable to the risk factor. This is known as the attributable risk. Here's an example of a cohort study, measuring the association between smoking and heart attack among those diagnosed with angina. First, researchers recruited persons with angina who were smokers, the exposed, and non-smokers, the unexposed. They followed these groups for 5 years to measure the risk of heart attack in the exposed and unexposed groups. Then, they compared the groups to see if there was evidence of an association between smoking and heart attack among persons with angina. The study found that for those with newly diagnosed angina, smokers had an almost 2 times higher risk of heart attack over 5 years compared to non-smokers. A cohort study is the strongest observational design used in epidemiology. Because it establishes the temporal association between exposure and outcome, it can provide evidence of a causal association. It also lowers the risk of certain biases. Some participants are chosen based on exposure. Many of the information and select biases present in cross-sectional and case control studies, described in a few minutes, do not pose a threat to the results. We'll talk more about systematic biases elsewhere in this course. Cohort studies are expensive, however, and require much more time. There is the potential for loss to follow-up as the participants are followed through time. This can introduce a bias to the results. They are also affected by changes that occur outside the study parameters that can't be controlled, such as changes in the environment and the healthcare system. These are not feasible study designed for rare diseases, since these would require a very large sample size and potentially a very long follow-up, making the cohort design cost prohibitive.